This is the Razer Edge Gaming Handheld Disassembly. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you subscribe and follow me on Twitter so you'll be notified once I upload a new video. And if you need any tools, there are links in the description. To start off, the SIM tray needs to be removed. Here's a better look at that. Now, heat needs to be applied to the back plate to loosen up the adhesive underneath, and then a pry tool can be used to pry the back plate off. Here's a better look at the back plate, and it's made of plastic. There's a large area of graphite film as well as some on the bottom to help transfer heat. There are also mesh filters over the vent openings. There are 23 Phillips screws which need to be removed. Taking a closer look at the top plastic cover, we can see some antenna lines drawn on this plastic piece, which are the light gray color lines. And there's also an opening over here which I believe the 5G millimeter wave antenna would go for the 5G Verizon version. Looking at the other side, there's a fan located here, and there's a speaker located on the top. There's also a rubber gasket and mesh filter over the speaker opening. The battery cables can now be disconnected. There's an adhesive pull pouch to help pry the battery off. Here's a better look at the 5000 mAh battery. We can proceed to disconnect the rest of the flex cables. Now the motherboard can be removed. Here's a better look at the motherboard. And there are numerous solder points on the motherboard for antenna connectors with no antenna connectors soldered to them, which I'm assuming would be used for the 5G version. There are also some metal holders over here for the coaxial cables, which would be connected to the antenna connectors. As for this area over here, I'm not exactly sure what would go there on the 5G version, or if anything would go there at all. The SIM and memory card reader is located on the back, as well as copper tape on the back shields and thermal paste. Once the copper tape is peeled back, we can see numerous thermal pads on the chips. Once the thermal pads are removed, we have a better look at the LPDDR5 RAM, which is seated on top of the Snapdragon G3X Gen 1 processor, as well as the 128GB storage or ROM. Once that plastic cover is removed, we can peel off and remove the flex cable for the front-facing camera. Here's a better look at the 5-megapixel front-facing camera. In order to replace the screen, you'd have to remove the back plate, the screws on the top cover and remove the cover itself. You'd have to disconnect the battery cables and the cables on the motherboard and remove the motherboard, which would give you access to running the screen cable through the opening in the mid-frame, at which point you'd heat up the front where the screen is to loosen up the adhesive underneath, pry the old screen off, apply new adhesive and reapply the new screen, making sure you run the flex cable back through the opening in the mid-frame, and then reassemble the device. Here's a better look at the bottom speaker assembly, and there's a rubber gasket and mesh filter over the speaker opening. To remove the subboard, we need to disconnect this flex cable. There's a rubber gasket around the charger port. The vibrator motor is located on the bottom corner and it's held down with some adhesive. There's an antenna board on this side as well as a microphone. There's also a second microphone underneath the shield on the motherboard, which I forgot to mention. The flex cable for the volume keys and power button is located over here. If you needed to replace that, you'd have to lift up and pull out the plastic bracket, and then peel off and pull out the flex cable. And finally, on top underneath the motherboard, there's a copper heat plate, which is seated on top of a vapor chamber to help transfer heat. For the repairability score, I give it a 6.5 out of 10. Now it's time to put it back together. Once everything's back in place, apply new adhesive and reapply the back plate. Flip it over, power it on, and you're done. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.